¿Qué pasa YouTube? SixftHax here. How's it going, all you UCL fans? Now, for those of you who may have not seen the first power ranking of the first half of the drafts, then what I wanted to do was do two different power rankings, just because UCL does drafting over 2 days, so I thought it'd be a pretty cool and fun idea to do a ranking of the first half of the draft and see how things changed once teams were finalized on the second day. So hopefully this will be going up on Sunday. If not, then definitely on Monday. Regardless though, if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to hammer arm that thumbs up button down below, and also let me know in the comment section, do you agree with my ranking? Do you disagree with my ranking? Let me know what your favorite draft out of this season is, and let me know who your favorite coach is as well, or just let me know one of the three. I don't know, let me know in the comment section. So with that out of the way, guys, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Actually, one quick little thing before I do start, I want to give a huge shout out to Zoe Seeley, I think is how you pronounce their name. Apparently they made this GFX. I thought it was made by one of the UCL coaches, but no, Zoe made it, so shouts out to them for making this. I do not take credit for the GFX that I'm using during this power ranking process. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our number 8 ranked team here. We're diving right into this, man. I'm excited. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited about all of these squads. So at number 8, we have a team that actually kind of dropped just a little bit when they decided to pick up their UU and NU Mons, and that is going to be PK Sparks, and that hotness, that thickness, coach of the Philadelphia for Alligators. And the main thing that kind of made me put PK at number 8 is that if you look at his team, there's two giant things just kind of sticking out from it. First off, he has 4 fighting types, 3 of which are the Swords of Justice. Now, he did say that he just kind of picked up Cabalion just kind of for the memes, for the lulz, for the people essentially, which is fine. Nothing wrong with picking just fun meme mons. But Cabalion, I really feel, is kind of like the sore thumb that also just kind of sticks out from this squad. And another really glaring weakness of this team is the fact that half of his squad is weak to ground type moves. Now, yes, he does have Landorus, Rotom Wash, and Dragonite. The thing is though, is that if a ground type gets coverage to hit those 3 mons, or if he doesn't bring all 3 in every single week, he's gonna have such a giant weakness to ground type moves. Yes, he does have Virizion, but Virizion isn't necessarily that bulky on the physically defensive side. It does have a tremendous special defense stat though, and then again, if a ground type gets coverage to hit it, then once that's gone, they can just spam their ground type moves. So that's kind of something that threw me away from the initial ending of this draft, considering that his 3 UU Mons all are weak to ground type moves, and 2 of his 3 NU Mons are weak to ground type moves. Now, I do like the fact that he did end up getting Mega Manectric. Mega Manectric, I think, is actually pretty cool on the squad, because paired up with Rotom Wash can beat just about any ground type Pokemon out there, and comboed with Mega Manectric, those two can overwhelm most teams that only have like 1 or 2 ground type Pokemon. So between those two, Mega Manectric could be put in a position where late game it can just come in and click Volt Switch and Thunderbolts, and that alone can give PK so much momentum. I also am a huge fan of the Garbodor pick. Garbodor is one of my favorite personal lower tier draft league Pokemon, because it gives him access to spikes. So much of his team just loves spikes along with Stealth Rocks. Terrakion, Cabalion, Gator, Virizion, Manectric, Dragonite, Landorus, and even Delphox all appreciate not only having Stealth Rocks up on the field, but also just having that nice one little layer of spikes there. Scrafty, I think, isn't that bad on the squad. If anything, I would suggest that he should have not picked Cabalion. He should have picked something else, but again, he did it for the memes, he did it for laws, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. But again, Cabalion just kind of sticks out, and I love Cabalion. Caballion's another one of my favorite mons in draft league format, but on this type of draft, it really just kind of overlaps with too many things, and I don't really see it really needing to do anything too too special, if you get what I'm trying to say. Also, his Z Crystal, him not picking up something like Flynium, Groundium, or even Rockium Z for Landorus is a little bit bad, because the main reason why Landorus is considered to be one of the top best Draft League Pokemon is because of Z moves. It takes advantage so easily of Z moves, and I guess it does have Superpower and Focus Blast, if I'm not mistaken, so PK could definitely run that. But I don't know, I'm really intrigued to see how PK is going to make this draft work. Again, he does have a really big ground weakness, and his hazard removal is still only defog, which does kind of suck with him having spikes. If he does want to try and hazard stack his opponent, then he's going to have to get rid of those spikes, potentially to get rid of the rocks on his side of the field as well. Either way though, we're going to see what PK does this season with this draft, and for all we know, he could be the dark horse and he could go undefeated. So moving on to our rank 7 team here, we got my fellow North Carolinian Jay, YouTube gamer, coach of the Carolina Keldios. Now, the reason why I dropped Jay one spot is because while his draft is still very, very fat, like this is the definition of thickness right here, he did kind of touch up his speed tiers between Starmie, Whimsicott, and Mega Beedrill. He does have some decently speedy mons, but at the same time, he still doesn't really have that good, powerful offensive wall breaker. Although Magneton being analytic can be very scary to deal with, there's going to be matches where he may want to run Sturdy or he may want to run a Magnepool, so he can't rely on analytic. Starmie does also get analytic, so that in a sense isn't too bad, but analytic really only works when he's forcing switch outs or when he's going second, and Starmie's already really fast, so it's not really going to be slower than many things. And while Magneton is probably going to be slower than most things, it's not going to be taking entirely too many hits, and it does have a 4 times ground weakness, so that's something that his opponents will be able to take advantage of. I do like the Hitmontop pickup. I think Hitmontop on this squad is actually a pretty solid fit because it gives him a second solid rapid spinner while not having to just solely rely on defog from Whimsicott potentially or rapid spin on Starmie. That opens up move slots for both of them to be able to use. And fun fact, Mega Beedrill also does get defog. I have used defog Mega Beedrill before, and while it's kind of like you defog and die, it's still a nice little tech for when you don't really have any other move to carry on Mega Beedrill. But his hazard removal, I think, is pretty solid between the double defoggers and the double rapid spinners. It's going to be kind of hard for people to get up hazards on his squad. Then again, I feel like something that really would have benefited his team here was if he was able to get a spiker, because while he does have all this fat and all this bulk, if he was able to get a spiker and being able to force switches from his opponent's potentially offensive mons or passive walls that he could potentially toxic or status in some type of way, that entry hazard damage eventually is going to start racking up on them, and things like Beedrill can come in to clean up late game. Garchomp could potentially find an opportunity to set up and go to town, and same for Blacephalon, although Blacephalon is probably a little bit harder to set up with because it is really frail. Then again, with the Firium Z, Blacephalon does get one move to absolutely nuke anything, which is pretty awesome. He can also use the Firium Z on Garchomp, and while Slurpuff does get access to Flamethrower, I don't really see him bringing the Firium Z on the Slurpuff, because even after using a Sea Crystal, Unburden doesn't activate, which it would actually be really cool if after Amon used the Z Crystal, Unburden activated, because technically you do lose or use the item, I guess, but you don't lose it. Yeah, well, it'd be kind of cool, I think. I don't know. That'd be just a nice little fun idea. But I do like the fact that he was able to touch up his speed tiers here. Definitely really nice. Also, having Tailwind support could be pretty awesome for a Choice Specs Blacephalon potentially, or just like an aggressive Swords Dance Garchomp as well, as not really having too much to take advantage of sticky webs from the Slurpuff. But then again, Belly Drum Slurpuff is still a terrifying mon in itself. Minior, I feel, is a little bit of an odd pick. I'm actually not even 100% sure off the top of my head if it even gets Stealth Rocks, but if it does get Stealth Rocks, that's one big thing I don't like about Jay's draft, is that while yes, he does have a lot of bulk, like a lot of good bulk, the amount of bulk that he does have on his team isn't going to matter if he's not able to punish his opponents. And just being able to carry status moves is only one aspect of when it comes to battles. Status moves can be easily taken care of if an opponent's team has Heal Bell or Aromatherapy on them. And I guess the same can be said about hazards, but if you have both of them, that's two things that your opponent has to deal with at once, instead of them only having to deal with one and then not even have to worry about the second one, thus being able to allow them to do much more. So I really feel like if you had picked up a second or just third Stealth Rocker, that would have been a lot better, because typically you don't want to always bring Stealth Rocks on Garchomp. Garchomp does like to be offensive. It can be run defensive in certain matchups, but I really feel like he's gonna feel the negativeness of this draft when he finds out that he can't get up Stealth Rocks most games to be able to get off that chip damage for his Beedrill, for his Blacephalon and his Garchomp, and even potentially an offensive Whimsicott late game. So that's just something that just really I didn't like about this draft. It's just the lack of hazards with the amount of bulk does kind of suck a little bit, and then again, he doesn't really have a good way of being able to break automatically through very bulky teams, if you get what I'm trying to say. Although if Jay had picked up another rocker, picked up some spikes as well, this draft I think honestly could have gone up to like number 4, number 3 even, arguably, because of just the insane wall core that he picked up early on with Toxapex, Cresselia, Porygon 2, and Slurpuff. But we're gonna see how Jay makes this draft work. I do have high hopes for him, and surely he will be able to make all this fat disgusting stuff put in work. So moving on to our rank number 6 team here, we got the King Nappy Boy at 92, coach of the Tucson Terrakions, and I'm actually happy Nappy moved up to a number 6 here, and that is solely because of his UU and his NU picks, being able to kind of add some nice little features and touching up a little bit of holes that he did have in the initial first half of the draft. So first and foremost, I think he has like 6 4x weak Pokemon. Yeah, Hoopa, Tyranitar, Swampert, Flygon, Chestnut, and Deontay. Half of his team is weak to 4x move. Now, 4x moves. Why can't I say that? 4x moves. Okay, whatever. Moving on. And the reason why I want to just specifically point that out is because while it may look like a giant glaring flaw, which in a sense it is, in another sense, it could be something that Nappy could potentially take into his favor, because if a Pokemon tries to run coverage or run a super effective move for one of his 4x weak Mons, but he doesn't bring it, but he brings something else instead, then that Mon that's trying to run that coverage for that one specific Mon Nappy has may not be able to hit the other Mon that it wasn't able to prepare for, if you guys get what I'm trying to say. So in a sense, Nappy could try to play like the mind game. If he's able to use this draft well and like do some scouting to find out exactly what coverage moves his opponent's Mons have, he could actually very well make this draft work out excellent. And the funny thing is too, is that if I'm not mistaken, he got sniped on almost every single pick that he wanted to try and get, and even though he didn't get what he mainly wanted, his UU and his NU picks still kind of fit all right in his draft. I do like the fact that he has a Trick Room aspect to his squad with Slowking and Deontay. I was about to say Mega. I'm so used to saying Mega Deontay, so I apologize. But yeah, between Slowking and Deontay, they both get Trick Room. Vikavolt, absurdly slow, has an amazing special attack that loves being able to come in on Trick Room and just run a shop. It also gets agility, which is pretty cool. Low-key agility of Vikavolt's absolutely terrifying. Next off, he also has Hoopa. I've seen Hoopa Unbound in Trick Room, and that is terrifying in itself as well. Plus, he does have a alright form of priority in extreme speed from Entei, which could very well come out to help him in some certain matchups. And as for his Mega pick, Mega Pidgeot I think is not necessarily one of the best Mega Pokemon out there. It's definitely not a Mega that I would not consider. It's a Mega I would consider, but it's not like on my priority list. Like, Mega Pidgeot is pretty cool. It does have a respectable bulk. It also gets access to workup, so like a workup set would be pretty cool in certain matchups if he does want to bring that, although it only does mainly carry Hurricane, Heat Wave, and a Hidden Power, and potentially U-Turn or Roost. It can still do decent damage, and the fact that you don't miss your very hard-hitting stab is always a giant plus. Crobat is also really cool, gives him a nice, very good speed tier on this type of team, so that those offensive speedy mons don't always need to run or don't always get to run plus attack or plus special attack nature on Nappy's squad. And again, the Trick Room aspect I think is a really nice addition to his squad. Outside of the 4x weak mons, I think that another really good thing that this draft would have benefited from was potentially a rapid spinner, because he does have 3 defoggers in Crobat, Pidgeot, and Flygon. But while him having spikes along with Stealth Rocks could put him in some certain scenarios where he's forced to defog away hazards on his side of the field, that could be a little bit bad. But besides that, the draft did improve a little bit, and that's why I put it at number 6. Also, Dark EMZ for Hoopa Unbound is very, very scary. This thing is one of those Pokemon where it doesn't need a Life Orb to just put in a lot of work. It can click its Z move, come in, get a kill, switch out, and still come in and just be a terrifying threat to a team that is not prepared for this thing, or that has lost their only real check to Hoopa Unbound, because Hoopa Unbound is a breaker. Hoopa Unbound comes in and things basically lose half of their HP or things die. Like, there's normally no way around it. Like, that's the definition of a breaker, and Hoopa right here could open up so many holes that Nappy can take advantage of with his draft. So I do want to see him put in some work with this draft. Again, he said he just wanted to wing it, and it's worked out for him in the past. Who knows, this could be the squad that finally wins him a championship. So moving on to our 5th ranked squad here, we have Shady Penguin and his New York Mankeys. Now, the reason I decided to move Shady down 1 spot is because while the first half of his draft started pretty strong, with Cloyster being the only kind of oddball out, his UU picks were pretty good. Alomomola, little iffy, but then again, Cloyster and Alomomola do like 2 totally different things, so I'll let that slide for now. But when we get to NU is where I think he just kind of takes a bit of a dip. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the double fighting types. I'm sure he does have a plan as to why he did pick up 2 fighting types, but personally, if I was him, I would have tried to get a fairy type, although I think an NU is very limited on actual fairy types, so that's probably why he didn't end up picking one at all, which a fairy type on the squad would have been really, really great, I think. Potentially another type of electric resist as well, because if you look at his squad, yes, he does have Raikou, Latios, and the Shaman, but his only electric immunity is Nidoqueen. And the thing about that is that once Nidoqueen is gone, if an electric Pokemon has coverage for his 3 electric resists, then they can be beat down, and then that electric type can just come in, take advantage of him not having any more resists or immunities, and then things just kind of go downhill for Shady there. Now, the Psychium Z is a little bit of an interesting Z crystal. If they're doing what they did in previous seasons, where he doesn't always need to bring Mega Latios, but he can bring regular Latios still without the Latiosite, and he can have the Psychium Z, then that makes a little bit of sense. But if he can't do that, and he has to bring Mega Latios every single time he brings Latios, then I feel like the Psychium Z crystal is a little bit of an odd choice in my opinion. Like, I guess he can use it on Shaman, Metagross, and Raikou. Like, that still isn't entirely too bad, but I feel like maybe a better Z crystal would have benefited this draft. Also, he doesn't necessarily have too many setup mons. Like, his best setup mons are the Cloyster and the Latios in my opinion. Yeah, Calm Mind Raikou is a little bit scary to deal with, but for the most part, unless it can come in perfectly, it's not always going to be able to Calm Mind and then get more than at least 1, potentially at least it gets 2 KOs is what I'm trying to get at, as where a Shell Smash Cloyster can literally just sweep on its own, and then Mega Latios setting up is absolutely terrifying to deal with. So a fairy type on the squad I think would have been a lot better, and then again, NU again is limited on fairy types, but he might have been able to get a fairy type in the UU tier. The overlapping water types I think is going to be a little bit of a hindrance to this squad, because he's probably not going to want to bring Alomomola and Cloyster both at the same time. So I want to see how he's going to work around that, and I'm hoping that he can prove to me that Passimian is a good member on this squad. Like, I still have my doubts about it, but I'm sure he has a game plan. I'm sure he picked it up for a reason, and I do want to say Awesome pick in the Incineroar. Intimidate Incineroar is absolutely phenomenal right now in the Draft League format, being an amazing pivot mon. Also gains momentum. It has Flame Charge and Sword Dance for potential sweeping capabilities. Although he did double up on his fire types as well, I think that's something that he can kind of work around, considering that he does have a Shaman, he's got Tornadus, and he's got Mega Latios, all three of which literally don't care about ground type moves, which is very nice there. So all in all, still a pretty decent draft, but I want to see just how Shady plans to use this. So moving on to our ranked number 4 squad here, we got Twit, coach of the Grand Canyon Greninja. Somehow he gets Wi-Fi out there and he can still upload. I don't know, but he did move up from number 5 to number 4 because of his amazing lineup of UU picks and his 2/3 of the NU picks. So my first gripe with this draft, and the biggest thing I don't like about this draft, is that I really have no idea why he has Tapu Fini and Jellicent. They're both bulky waters. From my personal experience, I would always choose Fini over Jellicent. I've used both, not on the same team, but I've used both, and I feel like Fini is just most likely going to be brought to way more matchups than what Jellicent is going to be brought. If he just wanted the ghost typing, then I guess that kind of makes some type of sense. I think I did hear him mention in the draft that he originally wanted Mismagius, but something like Palossand might have still been pretty decent on the squad. Also would have given him another form of Stealth Rocks, although I guess he did have the Rhydon, so maybe Palossand would have doubled up some type weaknesses. But even then, I feel like Jellicent is just a little bit out of place. Like, I guess you can maybe try offensive Jellicent, but I really don't see Jellicent coming to too many matchups. And much like Shady's scenario with Alamomola and Cloyster, there's not really going to be many games where you want to bring both Fini and Jellicent. So I want to see how he's going to make that work, and I kind of feel like that's the only real big issue with this squad. Like, I want to give him credit to picking up an amazing speed tier in Tornadus' base 111 speed, if I'm not mistaken, because now he's got a Pokemon to outspeed those base 150s, which is a pretty good benchmark when you're coming to terms with how fast you want a draft to be. Like, you at least want to have something that reaches 115 speed or like 111 speed, and he hit that 111 speed benchmark, because now he doesn't have to worry about mons like Latios or Latios, where they would outspeed his entire draft, and that in itself could be very scary. He now has Tornadus to outspeed those base 110 speed mons, which is really good. Celebi, I'm not a big fan of Celebi, although Celebi does do a plethora of things. Like, there's so many different things Celebi can do. It can be a pivot, it's a wall, it can be a breaker, it sets up, it gets rocks, it could, I don't know the baton pass rules. I don't think you can baton pass stats, because I think they're following like Smogon rules, so scratch that. But there's so many different things Celebi can do, although it does kind of suffer from the same thing that Hoopa suffers from, is that it's 4 times weak to U-turn. So anything with U-turn really, or anything with some type of bug type move, can just take advantage of it, and that's a little bit of a problem. But I definitely think that Twit will be able to play around that. And Infernape is one of my all-time absolute favorite draft league Pokemon. Infernape does so many different things, and I'm hoping that Twit will be able to make it shine. Infernape with Necrozma, those two are terrifying setup sweepers, and I'm hoping that Twit will be able to make them work. Rhydon is pretty solid. I also want to give him credit for picking up a Rapid Spinner, which is amazing, because now he doesn't need to just rely on Defog, which means he now can get up webs while still being able to remove hazards from his side of the field that may hurt some of his offensive threats. And then the ICMZ for Kieran Black is going to be absolutely terrifying for any team to try and prepare for. This thing just comes in, it clicks Z Free Shock, and something is losing half or all of their HP, and then at that point Kieran Black can either knock them out, or you can take advantage of a potential free turn. So yeah, kudos to the ICMZ. I guess he could use the ICMZ on Cryogonal as well. Maybe that is something that we will see in the future, and maybe even like ICMZ Tornadus, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Tornadus does get Icy Wind, which is kind of cool. So there is some different things he can do with this ICMZ instead of just having it on Kieran Black. So moving on to our ranked number 3 squad here. This was probably the one team I was expecting so much from, and then come to see their picks, they just kind of fell off a little bit. And that is going to be Sacrifice Negro and his Chicago Buffalons. Now, yesterday Nick was number one because his OU and his RU picks were really good, very terrifying. But then you look at his UU and his NU picks, and you can kind of see where it just kind of takes a little bit of a dip. And what I mean by that is that while yes, Gligar and Roserade, those two are really good at getting up hazards, the main issue I have with this draft is that he only has one Stealth Rocker. That's really bad in my opinion, because I don't think you're gonna be bringing Gligar to every single match. And if you do get in the habit, or if he does get in the habit of bringing Gligar every single match with rocks, eventually his opponents will be able to prepare for that. They're going to get into the habit of thinking, alright, well, he's going to bring Gligar, it's going to be rocks, so I can tailor make this Pokemon to stop him from getting up rocks, or set up on Gligar as he gets up rocks. And that could be something that's really going to hurt him in the long run of the season. And if anything, I feel like Palossand, actually, I know I mentioned it for Twit, but Palossand over Mismagius, I think, would have been a really good addition, because it would have given him the ghost typing that he probably did want, and it also would have given him a second Stealth Rocker, so he then could have flip-flop between Gligar and Palossand. Like, Mismagius is still a pretty solid mon in Draft League format, and in a format like this where you're taking 3 from each tier, and NU Mismagius I think is definitely one of the better mons that you can get from NU. A Comfey to round off his Fairy Steel Dragon Core is also pretty solid. Like, Comfey is a very slept on Pokemon, but what a lot of people don't realize is that it's got a base 100 speed, and its ability gives it priority on its Fairy Stab, Draining Kiss, and it gives it priority on Giga Drain and Synthesis, which can be very, very handy. It also gets access to Defog, giving him another form of hazard removal on the squad to go along with the Gligar and the Mega Latios, so he doesn't need to rely on both of them if he's facing a team that may try to get up hazards on his side of the field. A Rapid Spinner also would have been really nice, just to kind of ensure that if he did try to hazard sack somebody, he wouldn't get rid of the hazards. And I apologize that I keep bringing that matter up, but I always feel like it's good to have at least one Defogger and one Rapid Spinner if you can fit it on the squad. If you can't, then alright, that's fine, that makes sense. But for the most part, this draft still turned out really well. I do like the Mienshao and the Arcanine pick. Along with the Ambipom pick, he does have some really good forms of priority with Fake Out, Extreme Speed. He also does have Shadow Sneak on the Alolan Muck, I suppose. So that's really good. So even though his draft is a little bit slow, his fastest mon is that the Ambipom, he can still take advantage of those hazards potentially and that priority spam. And then finally off, another big issue I think with this draft is that he doesn't have immediate breaking potential, but at the same time he does still have some scary threats that can potentially easily set up and sweep. For example, Celesteela, very bulky. I mentioned this in the first half of the power rankings, where it can come in, it can autotomize and sweep late game, and then Mega Latios, super bulky, solid special attacks that higher than Mega Latios, and then it can just come in, Calm Mind, sweep by itself. His only real breaker is Mienshao, but that's something that I think this type of draft can work a little bit around, because it does have a nice little bit of bulk to be able to switch into things, guarantee being able to gain some type of momentum from his 5 U-turn mons, actually, now that I look at it, right? Ambipom, Meloetta, Gligar, Mienshao, and potentially Manaphy. So yeah, he does have some decent momentum. An electric type Pokemon on the squad would have been really nice, because if he loses his Roserade, Bulky Waters could be a little bit of a problem, but I'm sure that Nick will find a way to make things work, and this squad still has a very good chance to shine and potentially take him all the way to playoffs, honestly. So moving on to our rank number 2 team here. This is where I was like really neck and neck, inch by inch, centimeter by centimeter, man. Like, they were so close to each other, guys. You don't understand how close number 2 and number 1 were almost flip-flopped. But the more I looked at it, the more I analyzed things, I realized that the number 2 squad had a bit more flaws and not glaring weaknesses, but a bit more flaws and like negative aspects, I suppose, of the draft compared to the number 1 draft. A quick thing too, Normalium Z on Nick's squad is a little bit odd. That's something I'm very interested to see what he's going to do with, because I don't really know what he would really need Normalium Z for, but I digress. But our number 2 ranked squad here is going to be the Heated Mo and the Toronto Togekiss. Mo was number 2 yesterday, or on Saturday, yeah, because probably Monday or Sunday is when this is going up. But he was number 2 on the first half of the power rankings for the drafts, and he stayed at number 2 because he did not make too many picks to where it hurt his draft. And unlike Nick's draft, which I think put Nick under Mo in the end, was that Mo has very, very good Stealth Rockers. Stealth Rocks are always something you need to prioritize on a squad, so that was automatically something that put Mo over Nick. But also the fact that Mo stuck with the very versatile Mons that he wanted to pick. The only real dimensional Pokemon, the only real one-dimensional Mons that he does have are Kartana, Superior, and Rotom. That's 3 out of 12 Pokemon, which is only 1/4 of his draft that's one-dimensional. That means the rest of his team can run a variety of sets, and that alone is going to make prepping for Mo an absolute nightmare in my opinion. Plus the fact that half of his team can remove hazards. I don't understand how anybody is going to hazard stack this man. I don't even think you're going to be able to get Stealth Rocks up for more than 1 turn on this type of team, because you're going to get a Brox, he brings in something that removes them, and you're like, okay, what do I do? So that's a really, really big aspect that I love about Mo's draft, that he, again, just guaranteed, solidified, verified, just he 100% made sure, all right, you're not getting hazards on my side of the field, but I'm definitely going to get hazards on your side of the field. And when you're in that scenario with a Mega Charizard X that can Dragon Dance, that can Swords Dance, that can Tailwind potentially, like, that's absurdly terrifying. Plus, it maintains Donphan sturdy intact if he did bring an offensive variant of Donphan. Just the fact that his opponents may not be able to get up hazards on his side of the field means that his abundance of walls will not be taking that extra chip damage that they need to take in order for certain breakers or certain setup mons to be able to 2-hit KO and OHKO them. And that is just another just terrifying aspect of Mo's draft. Like, there is a very good chance in almost every single of his matches that he can bring 2 forms of hazard removal just because of how much he fit on this draft. And again, that's so scary to think of because of the fact that, again, you're not getting that chip damage. That means Mo, if he doesn't have hazards on his side of the field, he's not going to be punished for any switches that he makes. He's going to be able to freely switch, freely double, freely save things to sack off to something else so he can get safe switches into some other walls and some other offensive threats that he has in the back. Plus, Superior, in my opinion, is probably one of the better defoggers in Draft League format because it's a defogger that beats just about every single ground and rock type Pokemon, and it can still beat some different Pokemon type of Stealth Rockers as well. Plus, being able to have stuff like Leech Seed on Superior is going to wear down those opposing Stealth Rockers that aren't ground types or rock types, and that's going to make it easier for the rest of his team to come in and take advantage of them, while also being able to gain back a little bit of HP recovery. So Mo really did end up drafting very well for his UU and his NU picks. I really do like the fact that he has a good mixture of Stealth Rockers between Miltank, Donphan, Nidoking, and the Mew. Mew at this point, I honestly think, just never needs to be brought defensive, and that's a little bit scary once you find out that he's got the Munium Z, which I feel like the Munium Z more so hurt his overall draft because Munium Z is really only for the Mew. So if he gets in the habit of always trying to bring offensive Mew, eventually again, that is something that his opponents will be able to deal with. But at the same time, he could bring like defensive Mew with the Munium Z for just that 1 turn insta nuke. And for those of you who don't know what Genesis Supernova does, which is Mew's signature Z move, not only I believe is it 200 base power stab, but it also activates Psychic Terrain, which means his opponents can't have priority to finish off potentially something like Superior that can come in, just Leaf Storm spam and win at that point, or even potentially Rotom, or what's it called, Zard X, if his opponents are relying on priority to pick off a Dragon Dance Zygarde, not Zygarde, sorry, a Dragon Dance Charizard X. So that's a pretty cool aspect of the squad. However though, I really don't like the fact that he got Slowbro and Milotic. That's like my one real issue with his UU and his NU picks, is that he kind of got in the habit of what Twit and Shady did, where they picked up double waters, where they almost kind of do the same thing, but it's just like one little subtle difference. Like for example, Slowbro can Calm Mind and be a sweeper, as where Milotic cannot. So I guess that's kind of cool. Slowbro also can function much better as a pivot because of Regenerator, and can be an amazing Assault Vest Pokemon as well. So I'm intrigued and I'm very curious to see how he's going to make that work when he's got the double waters. And again, I don't think they'll both be coming. If they both come, then I'm sure he'll have good reasoning behind them, but I am very interested to see how that's gonna work. Another little kind of issue with his squad is that he doesn't really have many physically offensive threats. Like, if you don't want to count offensive Donphan just because of how slow it is, his only real physical threats are Zardex and Kartana. Arguably Nidoking and arguably Donphan, as I mentioned, but for the most part his team is very specially based, and that could be something that could prove to be just a little bit of a nuisance for certain matchups. But moving on to our #1 ranked squad, I wonder who it could be. It can't be anybody else except for the final person that we haven't talked about, obviously. And that is going to be my boy Nexus, coach of the Pittsburgh Pichus. And his UU and his NU picks, I think, are the best picks that covered his first half of the draft, where he really didn't get hindered by anything. If anything, he gained more than what essentially he probably lost overall for his team. So first off, the fact that Suicune and Crocodile both were not gone round 1 is baffling to me. I definitely think those, along with like Superior, Terrakion, Infernape, and Celebi, those are all like worthy round 1 picks in UU in this type of draft league format. And the fact that Nexus was able to get both just adds so much to his team, because Suicune alone, as of recently this year, I think honestly, either this year or like the start of late last year, a lot of people started to realize, holy crap, Suicune is absolutely insane. I know people that think Suicune is a top 10 draft league mon, and I could very well be convinced that it is as well, because a popular set that Suicune runs now is Substitute, Calm Mind, Protect, and Scald, or Toxic over Calm Mind. And you know what that set does? That set beats just about any counter to Suicune, and that in itself is scary to think about, because Suicune can potentially beat grass types just with that set alone, and the fact that it has pressure means that it can outstall any type of grass stab move that Mon may have. And if your opponents don't prepare for Calm Mind Suicune, Crocune, that thing comes in, Calm Minds, Rest, Sleep Talks, Spam Scalds, and just goes to town. It also gets some pretty cool support moves in Icy Wind and Tailwind. Tailwind could be very cool on the set for something like Banded Victini. Adamant Banded Victini and Tailwind would be very scary. Even Serena, I think Serena has like a base 120 physical attack stat, which is very solid honestly. So in Tailwind, that could be super scary to deal with. And then the fact that he paired it up with T-Spikes from Nihilego and the Excelgor makes Suicune even more terrifying. Crocodile already is one of my all-time favorite draft league Pokemon. You see Crocodile, you may think, oh, it's just going to be offensive, but I've used Assault Vest, I've used defensive, potentially, again, Bandit, Scarfed, Expert Belt, Black Glasses. Like, there's so many different things Crocodile can honestly do, and being able to add those versatile mons to his draft overall, I think just really benefited him. The only thing I think that would have made this draft a little bit better was that if he was able to get some form of Defog or Rapid Spin outside of just Tapu Koko and Serena, because for the most part, Serena's probably going to be the one that he's going to want to just run rapid spin on, because Tapu Koko loves to have all 4 move slots when he's trying to take on a squad, to be able to properly cover everything or have a type of momentum with U-turn or Volt Switch. So I feel like that does kind of hurt this draft a little bit, but honestly, if you look past that, everything else just kind of molds so well into this draft. And then, even though he did have an initial ground weakness with his first 10 picks, between Uxie, or even just Uxie alone, Uxie being such a bulky Pokemon, immune to ground type moves, means that this thing can deal with just about any type of ground type Pokemon. And if his opponents are going to try to rely on non-stab EQs, Earth Powers, Stomping Tantrums or whatever, those aren't going to be doing that much damage to anything besides like Nihilego, which is 4 times weak to it. And speaking of Nihilego, I think is kind of like an underrated Mega. The biggest issue that Nihilego has is that it can't really hit Steel types. Like, Steel types unfortunately just completely hard wall Nihilego for the most part, but he has Zydog, he has Crocodile, he has Victini, and even Tapu Koko with Nature's Madness. And if they're a pure Steel type, he's got Mega Lopunny. So this draft with Nihilego, I honestly think Nihilego is going to be like the hidden gem in this team. Nihilego is going to be the black horse of this draft, in my opinion. Like, this thing is going to come in, potentially just wreck shop, sweep, just do whatever it wants once his opponent has no Steel types, once he has no ground type to resist Power Gem or Sludge Bomb, once he has no poison types to resist Sludge Bomb. Like, I honestly think Nihilego is going to be the hidden gem of this draft, and is just going to come in and put in a lot of work. Now, obviously, he's not going to be taking many matchups where he's going to want to bring hazard stacking along with Excelgor, but the fact that he was able to fit spikes alone is really good. Plus, Zydog, I don't think I touched on Zydog too much in the first one, but Zydog has a move that is so spammable. Only 2 types of Pokemon are resisted to it: grass types and bug types. Once those grass types and those bug types are gone, Bandit Zydog just comes in and clicks 1,000 arrows for free without really being punished, and that is going to be something that his opponents need to prepare for. They're going to need to watch out for Zydog, because if their ground immunity, or ground resist I should say, is gone, then it just comes in and it just spams 1,000 arrows and potentially wins. Plus, it does have a blisteringly high speed. I think it's like base 115, which makes it faster than so many other Pokemon by itself. So that alone is scary, and there's just so many things that this draft can honestly do. The triple ground types is a little bit of an issue, kind of annoying to see honestly, but Steelix I think was the only real Steel type in the NU tier, and if he had picked up something else like maybe Empoleon, but I guess he could have got Empoleon over Suicune. I don't like Empoleon personally, but if he had got Empoleon, maybe got something else in NU, that wouldn't have been entirely too bad. But it does have a little bit of a ground weakness once it loses Uxie, and Serena and Excelgor are too weakened. But outside of that, this draft I think is still very, very solid, easily number 1 in my opinion, and it can just do so many different things. Along with the Electrium Z Crystal, Victini and Tapu Koko become absurdly terrifying to prepare for, because if you think Koko is going to have the Z Crystal, then Victini has the Z Crystal. What do? Or vice versa. Like, there's so many good aspects of Nexus's draft that I definitely see him making playoffs very easily. Is he going to win the championship? I'm not sure. I'm not playing for him, or I'm not playing with the team is what I'm saying. Well, yeah, I'm not playing. He's playing. I don't know. But I do guarantee he's going to make playoffs with this team. Like, this is very terrifying. There's going to be so many painful matchups where his opponents are just going to realize that maybe they don't have something to cover everything, or maybe they didn't think of something, and then that surprises them. And just, again, there's so much that this draft can do. I could go on about this draft alone for days, honestly. Like, it's so good, and I definitely know Nexus will be able to make it work, because he is a very good battler, and he has been recently getting more into the draft league format, so the creativity is going to go into some of his matchups, and he's going to be able to put in work with it. So yeah, guys, that is going to be the officially unofficial post-draft power rankings for UCL Season 3. Now, I may be doing weekly power rankings for for all the coaches once the actual season starts, which, if I'm not mistaken, starts on the 22nd. I want to say it's either this week or next week. I'm pretty sure it does start before the end of this month though. So yeah, if you guys do want to see that, then hopefully y'all will be able to stick around and check those out. And with that being said, guys, thank y'all for watching. If you may have missed the first half and want to see how things kind of changed around, definitely check that out. We'll be down in the description, and I will see you all later. So later, everybody.
No matter where you're at, I'm not here to make friends, it's time to attack and deplete your HP with a final smash. Don't make me turn around and pull a 6 foot hacks. 6 foot hacks, yeah. 6 foot hacks, yeah. 6 foot hacks.